Ladies and gentlemen, it's 5 o'clock on January 25th. This is the Carson City Consolidated Municipal Notice of Meeting of the Planning Commission. Call the roll, please.
Chair Borders.
Present.
Vice Chair Cron.
Here.
Commissioner Brooks.
Here.
Commissioner DeChristopher.
Here.
Commissioner Peterson.
Here.
Commissioner Preston. Commissioner Pizell.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, Commissioner Pizell, will you lead us in a pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The public is invited at this time to comment on any topic that relates to a matter over which this public body has supervision, control, jurisdiction, or advisory power, including any such matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. No action may be taken on any matter raised during this period for public comment. Is there any public comment at this time?
Thank you, Commission. My name is Chris Martinovich. I'm the Transportation Manager for Carson City Public Works and the Carson Area Metropolitan Planning Organization. I wanted to make sure this board was aware that CAMPO, Carson Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, is updating our long-range transportation plan, our 2050 Regional Transportation Plan. And as part of that update, we have a survey that's out for the public, and I wanted to make sure you all, as well as anyone here listening, is aware of that survey and takes that survey as part of our ongoing efforts to look at long-range transportation. I did bring a flyer, and I will put it on the back table. There are a number of copies here if you have interest in seeing that. The survey is available on our website at carsonareampo.com. carsonareampo.com. It's right on the front page. You can see that there. I also wanted to bring the Commission's attention projects that the Regional Transportation Commission has recently approved through our Performance District 3. These are pavement projects. And I believe this commission was wondering what projects were coming up next. And so for that, we've prioritized a number of projects, and I believe those, a map and exhibit have been provided to you, and we look forward to doing those projects over the next couple of years as going forward. So that concludes my comments. I appreciate everyone's time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment at this time? Hearing none, for possible action is the approval of the minutes of May 28th, 2025. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, may I have a motion to accept the minutes of May 28th, 2025? So moved. That's moved by Commissioner Brooks. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner DeChristopher. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
I will abstain. I was not at the last meeting.
Thank you. Motion carries. Item 6A, LU 2025-0192, discussion and possible action regarding an application from Bob Fredlin for a special use permit to allow for the construction of a 256 square foot attached accessory dwelling unit ADU on property zone single-family 6,000 located at 900 Mountain Street, Assayers parcel number APN 001-21301. Heather.
Thank you. Heather Ferris for the record. The subject property is zoned SF6 and located at the northwest corner of Mountain Street and Tahoe Drive. The applicant is proposing to construct a 256 square foot attached accessory dwelling unit. An ADU is a conditional use in the SF6 zoning district and must be consistent with Division 1.4 of the Carson City Development Standards. The staff report contains an analysis of how the ADU meets these standards, including requirements that the ADU be attached, the size limitations of the ADU, the required parking, and the requirement for the ADU to be consistent and compatible with the design and materials of the main residence. As shown in the elevations here, the small attached unit will blend with the existing residence. It's designed similar to a studio apartment with a bedroom or living area, bathroom, and kitchenette. There's also a covered porch available for use. Additionally, while listed as a condition of approval, staff has also confirmed and with the applicant that the use and the site plan do not conflict with any private restrictions on the property. There are 6 findings of fact that the Planning Commission must make in the affirmative in order to approve a special use permit. Staff has made all findings and is recommending approval, subject to the 8 conditions of approval that are included in the staff report. The applicant is here, and I'm available for questions.
Okay. Any questions for staff? Commissioner Crone?
Yeah. When you were working with the applicant, Heather, was there any discussion with the applicant about construction hours?
No, typically construction hours are something that are established with a tentative map. If that's something that you want to consider, we can certainly consider adding a similar condition.
It was just something, and I don't know what the other commissioners would feel. It's just always a concern when you're building a construction project like this in the neighborhood. Just some reasonable times to start and stop. That's all. And maybe that's not an issue. Maybe the other commissioners don't think that's an issue, but I just wanted to know if there had been some discussion with the applicant about that.
Any further questions for staff? Heather, can you go back 2 slides? One more. Okay. Thank you. Is the applicant here? Would you like to? You get to come up front. Please push the button until the light turns green. There you go. State your name.
Hi, my name is Megan Trumbull.
The 8 conditions of approval in the staff report, will you accept all those?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Crone?
Not so much for the applicant. I had another question another question for Heather, but I don't have any questions.
Okay. The door that comes out of the garage is still going to remain there. The ADU is going to be, if I look at the plans correctly, it's going to be inside that door.
So you will access the ADU from the outside?
Correct.
Yes.
But the door that goes into the garage from the backyard
No,
is not going to be affected.
no, it won't be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, you want to ask Heather a question then?
Yeah, real quick question, Heather, again, it's just, it's a nuanced question, but because make sure I understand this correctly, because the lot is less than 2,100 square feet, the ADU had to be attached to the home, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so, so with that, potentially this could have been up to 700 square feet, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we're talking about an ADU basically of about half the square footage that could have been built on the house.
Yes.
Okay, just to make sure I understood that, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
Question.
Go ahead.
Question for you, Mr. Chair. You asked if the garage door would be affected. The applicant said it wouldn't be there anymore. I just want to make sure there's no conflict between what you thought she was saying.
No, I originally, when I remembered looking at the property, I thought the access to the garage was in the middle of the garage, and it's not. It's on the edge. So whether it's there or not is immaterial. I was worried about walking through the garage into that apartment. So, all right. Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll be ready for a motion unless somebody wants to talk about something else.
I move to approve special use permit LU 2025-0192 based on the findings subject to the conditions of approval contained in the staff report.
There's a motion by Mr. Pazell. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Crone. Any other further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck. AB 2025-0189, discussion and possible action regarding a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors concerning an application from CC Nevada LLC for the abandonment of a public roadway easement and right-of-way approximately 28,102 square feet along the west side of Airport Road contained partially within and partially adjacent to the eastern boundary of the 23.94 acres parcel located at 899 North Lampa Lane, APN 010-74104. Heather.
Thank you. Heather Ferris again for the record. The abandonment area is located on the west side of Airport Road between Florentine and Desatoya Drive. The areas are on vacant land and are remainders of a roadway easement and a public right-of-way that are no longer necessary to provide access to the parcel due to the realignment of Airport Road. The roadway easement is shown here in green, and the right-of-way is shown in yellow, blue, and purple. As you can see in Area 1A, which is the green area, a portion of the roadway easement overlaps with Airport Road. This portion will be offered for dedication to Carson City through a deed of dedication to be recorded prior to or concurrently with this abandonment. These are the official exhibits showing the area to be abandoned. This is the roadway easement going along the western portion of Airport Road, and then the triangular right-of-way is shown in this exhibit, and then I highlighted in orange the area that will be dedicated for acceptance for right-of-way for the city. The abandonment areas will ultimately be absorbed into the adjacent parcel on the west side of Airport Road. Staff was able to make the required findings and is recommending the Planning Commission recommend approval of the abandonment to the Board of Supervisors, subject to the 6 conditions of approval, which are included in the staff report. A couple of things I wanted to highlight. There's 3 conditions, including a requirement for the establishment of easements for the Southwest gas infrastructure and storm drain outfall, a requirement for a lot line adjustment to either be recorded prior to recordation of the abandonment, or alternatively, they could revise their Exhibit C so that the legal description for the resultant parcel is no longer dependent upon that lot line adjustment, and a requirement for dedication of that public right-of-way shown here in orange for Airport Road. And that would, again, need to be completed prior to or concurrent with the recordation of the abandonment. With that, I'm available for questions, and Stacy Huggins is here representing the project.
Okay. Heather, the reason this thing's cut up into pieces is because they're different things. Is that right? One's a right-of-way, one is an easement, and
Correct.
Is that the sole purpose for A, B, C, and D, or 1, 2, 3, and 4?
Yes.
Okay. I surmised that. I just wanted to make sure that was what it was. Are there any questions for staff? Commissioner Cron?
Yeah, Heather, this basically is just kind of a cleanup is what we're talking about. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay,
for
and
lack of a better term.
I don't mean to make that, I don't mean to minimize this. I'm just kind of curious. Is that really kind of what we're up to, is to say we've found this, we need to fix this, is kind of
Yes.
my assumption that this has happened.
Correct.
Correct, okay. One of the things we talk about a lot at this meeting is public utility easements. And even though they talk about Southwest gas infrastructure, is that only, are you thinking about there's just no discussion about a public utility easement. A lot of times we will see that on other types of maps and those kind of things. Is that an issue with this particular abandonment or not?
So Stacy might be able to shed a little bit more light on it. Through our review, And I don't know if Stephen has any input either, but through our review, it came to light in the, from the utility companies that they have infrastructure there. They weren't really clear as to where that infrastructure is. So as part of this abandonment, to ensure that they have the appropriate easements, we want to make sure that those are established before this abandonment's recorded.
Okay. So we're talking, well, in the conditions of approval, we're talking specifically Southwest Gas, which is fine, and the drain fallout. Are there other folks that need to be included in that as well?
Southwest Gas is the only utility company that indicated that they had infrastructure
In
in
that
that
area.
location.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, thank you.
Any further questions to staff? You said the applicant is here?
Good evening, Stacy Huggins with Wood Rogers for the record.
There are 6 conditions of approval. Have you read them, and are they acceptable?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, that's easy. Any public comment? Hearing none? What's the pleasure of the group?
Well, I'd be more than happy to make a motion.
Please do.
I move to recommend that the Board of Supervisors approve the abandonment of the roadway easement based on the findings and subject to the conditions of approval contained in the staff report.
I second. I second.
You're third.
Was I third? I third.
Motion by Commissioner Crone, seconded by Commissioner Brooks. And thirded by Commissioner DeChristopher. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you. LU 2025-0188, discussion and possible action regarding an application from Glenn A. Hooton for a special use permit to allow for the establishment of 1 residential unit on the 2nd floor of an existing non-residential building and permanent placement of 3 metal storage containers associated with an existing business located in the Retail Commercial Zone District at 2580 North Carson Street, APN 001-032-28. Heather.
Good evening, Heather Manzo for the record. So the subject site does have adjacency to residences to the west and is otherwise surrounded by commercial properties. And so this site plan shows the 3 containers that are proposed along the southern boundary. If you visited the site, you'll see that number 3, which is closest to the street frontage, is actually currently located pretty close to the residential properties to the west. So the applicant is aware that the placement of the containers, or they became aware that the placement of the containers does require approval. And so we asked them not to move anything until there was a special use permit before the planning commission. So that's why currently it doesn't comply with what their site plan is showing. And then the second portion of the special use permit is for the 2nd floor apartment. And so the rectangle that's noted on the east side of the building, well, southeast side, with a 41-foot separation between the south property line, that is where they're planning on putting the landing to add stairs and an access door into the future apartment. So currently, there's a conference room upstairs that's not really being utilized, and so they want to make sure when, I believe, somebody who comes to the site lives out of town, so they want to make sure that they've got accommodations on site for when that, when those folks visit. So with this, I did just take a picture from near the right-of-way to show the store frontage, and then along the side of the building. That arrow does represent where that stair and landing would be located. And I believe the window that's there now would actually be replaced with the door. And then I just want to note that condition number 6 is recommended to bring the site into compliance with the code when, as it relates to metal storage containers and what improvements need to be placed on the site to allow for those. The containers are already a gray color, which normally wouldn't be something that staff would be okay with. However, the building is painted gray, so it's literally painted to match the building that is placed on the site. But there is some slatted fencing that ends pretty far back on the site. So the applicant has been made aware that they'd have to extend the screening fence along that southern property line and then to fully enclose that area. So the containers are not visible from the public right-of-way or abutting properties. And so with that, staff is recommending approval of this request, and I'm available for any questions.
Heather, is the fence 6 feet or 8 feet?
It's 6 feet.
6 feet? All right, can we go back to the site plan picture? One more. We're gonna have a residential unit on the top of this building, which is fine. What other things do we needs to happen for the residents there?
The main thing is that there does need to be some private open space area for that resident. 250 square feet per unit is what's required by code, so that is something that they're going to need to do to make sure that the site is compliant with that requirement.
Okay, and how big is the apartment up there?
That is a great question, and I'll let the applicant answer that.
Okay. Any further discussions from staff? Yes, let's see, Commissioner Brooks.
Heather, do you have a sense of how long the containers have been there and been out of compliance?
I don't know. I do know that Hoot and Tire had been there for a while, and they just recently purchased the property. So
Okay.
when the containers showed up, I'm not really sure, but they are there now. So they did go through the major project review process.
But
We're in-
they were renting and now they're owners of the
Correct.
property? Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Is this a forgiveness instead of a permission?
I think for the containers, that's probably spot on.
All right. Commissioner Brooks? I'm sorry, Commissioner Cron.
Can you go back to the other one with the back one more? There we go. So I make sure I'm understanding you correctly. So the screening fence will go from the back property line, which is adjacent with the residence, all the way up to basically the end of the arrow, and then it'll cut across, correct? And there'll be a gate, I'm assuming. I just want to be sure I'm clear on that, so.
Yeah, there'll be a gate. I actually think they've got a portion of the fencing along that area that's going north-south, where the gate will go. They've got a portion of that fence already up. So basically, the west side of the property already has a screening fence, and then there's a partially screened fence that's on the site already. So they'd have to extend that to fully enclose their rear yard, basically, to screen the view of the
Are
containers.
you looking at the condition of the fence as well? It's pretty rickety.
I did notice that, but I do believe that it still serves as a fence today, and we can speak with the applicant as to what their plans are for the existing fence, if that's your pleasure.
Again, it's just one of those things to, I'm excited that the owners currently of the property have been probably doing well enough to actually buy the property and actually are now running their own business on their property that they own. So I certainly appreciate that effort and that investment into the community, as well as, working with staff to clean some things up here. So I do appreciate that. The other thing that I like about it is that, when we've talked about implementing, I appreciate you putting that into the staff report, the master plan. We just adopted a master plan, and this does fit into that, if you will, multi-use aspect that we've been looking at for along the corridors in our corridor master planning and land use. So I think there's some real good positive things here happening with this. So I really don't want to rain on anybody's parade. So I think these are good steps moving forward. I just think that there does need to be a little more fine tuning put into the site design and a little more thoughtfulness regarding some of the just the scatteredness of some of these areas. Now, again, with the new fences, this is not going to be seen from the road. So some of the visual clutter that you see out there right now won't be there. So I guess what I'm asking is that with these relocating of these containers, are these containers, these Connex boxes going to be used for storage of the tires, or are they just going to hang out there until they mysteriously vanish somewhere?
That's a great question, and it actually does tie into this picture. So I went out and took pictures of the site. However, my view looking this way was not available because there was a vehicle parked right in that area that would show the fencing. So this is actually months ago that this picture was taken. And the other picture is actually how the site looks now. So the intent of the containers from the applicant's discussion with staff is really to store their tire materials that had been kind of all over the site within those containers to clean up the property.
Okay. And then as far as the apartment up above, does it, again, do we as, when we're talking about use, I get that, but do we get into the aspect of what's up there in the apartment? Bathrooms, kitchens, that kind of thing at that point, or how do we define that?
So the planning commission gets to consider whether or not an apartment can be at this location with the special use permit. And then if the answer is yes, and you grant the special use permit, they'll have to get building permits and meet the building code, fire code, and things like that. So the planning commission wouldn't really be involved in what's on the interior, but there are codes in place to outline what is going to be required for that.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Peterson?
I just want to get back to the fence. So will a new fence be put up to reach the height of the containers, or they're just going to do an existing, just replace that fence at the same height?
So currently, there's not a fence along a portion of the area that they are planning to enclose. So they're going to have to extend the fence with new fencing. What our code says is that 6 foot tall with slats, chain link with slats, satisfies the requirement for screening. So they are proposing a 6 foot tall chain link fence with slats.
Yeah, so that'd be as high as it would be, in that we would see that much of the container above the fence.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Commissioner DeChristopher?
Thank you. Yeah, I want to echo what Commissioner Crom had stated. I do appreciate what's been done to clean it up in the meantime, but still do have those concerns about the existing fence looking as good as the new fence going in. Just a side note, it came up in my conversation with you, Heather, that it's interesting. This is our first project, I believe, that came to us since doing the change to mixed-use corridor. And one of the first things I looked at was, we have the new Panda Express. We have a new car wash to the left of this. We have Carpet One, which I'm not sure if that's not there any longer. But the improvements that have been made on those 3 properties are very attractive. And I saw a great opportunity to continue that nice front appeal, the curbside appeal, because you have a good start with the landscaping. And lo and behold, we realized, oh, you can't do that now. We can't talk about the landscaping, or we could talk about it, but that's one of the things that went away when we made this change, is being able to dictate landscaping. No?
No, the standards remain the same in terms of when additional landscaping is required for sites that don't conform with the landscape code. So in this case, because there are no building additions proposed, there's no nexus in the code to require additional landscaping. So if they were proposing a building addition, there's a formula for how much additional landscaping they would be required to add to get closer to conforming with code.
So I want to make sure I understand this. In the situation with the one that we're looking at, they have existing landscaping that, in my opinion, could use some sprucing up to match the neighboring properties. Because it's existing, that we can work with. Can we make additional changes to the existing landscaping or improvements for lack of a better term?
I guess it all comes down to the findings. If there's a finding that you're struggling to make without enhanced
including it?
landscaping, then that's something that you can put on the record and add in as a condition. What the code speaks to is just, we can't require additional landscaping if there's not an addition being proposed.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Commissioner Bazell?
Sorry about that. Quick question, Heather. The staff report indicates the site is located in a FEMA X-shaded flood zone area. The site plan indicates there's an area of the property that has some flood potential.
So I'll let Stephen address that. I saw that and thought that might raise questions, so.
Stephen Pote of Development Engineering for the record. So on the screen, you can see on the left side, there's a line that says flood. That is where the property goes from FEMA Zone X to X shaded. So it's a slight difference in the potential for flooding, but neither of those have any additional requirements.
Thank you.
Commissioner Crum?
Yeah, so I'm a little bit confused. I appreciate what Commissioner Christopher is talking about. So how does that play into the new requirement for the applicant? Because if this becomes an apartment, you need another 250 square feet of something. So is that landscaping? Is that an area underneath the stairs that's like has barbecues under it? Or what does that mean, I guess?
So in this case, because it's a mixed-use project, it would be 250 square feet of dedicated space for use by the resident of the apartment. Our code doesn't really dictate what has to go into that. It could be landscaped, it could be a picnic table, it could be many different things, and I'm not entirely sure what the applicants got in mind in terms of meeting that condition or requirement. But that's what it is 250 dedicated square feet for the apartment user.
Okay. The other thing real quick, sorry, I was just kind of contemplating your answer. The other thing was somewhere in the staff report or maybe a condition, I don't recall right off the top of my head, is that the Connex boxes cannot be used for advertising. You can't put banners up on it. As I understand that correctly?
Yeah, that's a code requirement.
It's a code requirement, okay. So what about the fences, the 6-foot fence? Can they put it on that?
Well, we have a code for signage, and you're allowed so many square feet of signage for a property. They'd have to get a permit to place it wherever it's going to go. I don't typically see a permit come in to put it on a fence. Usually it's got to have a structure that is engineered to hold whatever the sign is.
Yeah, oh, that's fine. I was just triggered that. All right, thank you.
Commissioner Peterson?
Do we have any idea, like, how big that apartment's gonna be? Did it say any indication what the square footage of that apartment is?
I think when the applicant comes up, they can answer that question for you.
Okay.
Any further questions for staff? No. Is the applicant here? Can you come forward, please?
Hello, my name is Brittany Badhan.
Have you read the 7 conditions of approval
Yes,
and they're acceptable to you?
yes.
Okay. How big's the apartment?
You know, I was just thinking about that. I actually don't know the square footage because it just hasn't been used lately. And it was, I think, an old Chevrolet dealership. So at one point, I think those were just office meetings up there. And there is an existing bathroom. And then there's just one entryway, which is stairs inside the office. So it would have to be rezoned and, you know, brought up to code to meet whatever standards that, you know,
Okay.
to make it an apartment. But it is mostly existing over the portion of the office. So there's quite a large office on where you see the
Yeah.
front windows, and about halfway back, that's where it starts, the apartment.
Okay.
I remember being in that shop. It was a hot rod shop way back when,
Yeah.
you know, back in the 70s. And I remember being upstairs. I was up there a lot.
Yeah.
You know, looking for parts and all that kind of stuff. It is a big space. You know, the intent of an apartment's kind of cool. Curious, like, who's going to be staying there? You know, is
Well-
it like a roaming manager? Is it going to be full-time for the family?
As of right now, no, because my husband and I, we own the one in Reno and the one in Carson, and we just recently bought the property for this building. So we're finally able to make some of the updates and, you know, make it look a lot nicer now that it's ours, when before we were kind of restricted. So it would mostly be for us when we're in town because we do frequent both places and then we live out of state. So
Okay.
we're back and forth quite often.
So you wouldn't be renting it out to anybody?
No, plus I wouldn't want anybody there
Cool.
full time.
And you do have landscaping. You do have landscaping. It's a big pile of rocks out there.
Yeah, that very front, which she referenced, it's kind of just a weed mess, and so that probably is our next step. It is more like comes down to the money because the fencing is quite expensive, and then building the stairs. So that is proposed. You know, I really would like to remove that whole rocky landscaped area because we would like to put in eventually a freestanding sign that would match with the neighboring properties a little bit better than what we have existing on the building. But that would also provide maybe a few more parking spots. So it is something that we're looking forward in the next, you know, so many months.
Commissioner Brooks?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know you don't know the square footage of the apartment. Would you characterize it as studio-sized, one-bedroom sized?
Yeah, it's like a good size living room area, you would say.
Okay,
Right,
so-
and then a little kitchen. It was like proposed kitchen area, and then it has a bathroom. So it's like a studio already, just not usable.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
What's the process of how tire companies get rid of their tires?
We have a recycling company that comes in weekly, picks them up, and we pay per tire
Okay, so they pick them up like weekly?
every week. Yep.
So that pile that was out there is,
So the picture that was taken, it was actually, if you go back to it, you might be able to see, but there's actually a truck we're unloading at the moment.
yep.
And so as they come off, they get stacked up and counted to check the inventory levels, and then they get put away. So that
Well,
truck and those
the-
tires,
The new tires, I don't have a problem with.
Right.
It's the pile over here in front of the,
so
Iconic.
that would be the pile that gets picked up every week. So sometimes it gets a little bit big depending on how busy we are, but they do get picked up regularly.
okay. Answered my question, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, ma'am?
On landscaping, there is a code provision that says that the landscaping must be maintained. And there was very nice landscaping in front of the site. And this is not a planning commission matter, it's a staff matter. And so I will ask the staff to go ahead and I will enforce that code provision, which I have the authority to enforce that code provision, so that the landscaping that had been installed and I think it was as part of the neighboring building, but I might be wrong about that. But it looked really, really nice that that is being maintained. If the property owner would like to change out that landscaping, we would review that against the code. But at this point, it does need to be maintained, and if it has not been maintained at the staff level, we can require that.
Okay. Do you have any idea what you're gonna do for that 250 square feet?
When I was reading the listing, I'm not exactly sure, but the back side of the building that faces the residential, there's a wide open area that I'm not sure what they had used before, but that, in my mind, would have been where that was, because I do believe it's bigger than 256.
Commissioner Crone?
Yeah, just following up on what Hope had talked about. I tend to fall into the same camp as Commissioner Christopher. I think there is, you know, a real nice opportunity here to do something nice out front and you know, and enhance the landscaping. It would certainly enhance the look of your business as well. So, but from what you're saying, Heather, there's not much we can do from a planning commission level because there's no requirement of landscaping to be changed. Is that correct?
There's not a code requirement to increase landscaping, but again, if you're tying it to a finding and unable to make it without a certain condition, then you are capable of presenting that and just noting the finding that it would be tied to.
Well, and alternatively, we have the big gorilla over there they can enforce it.
The big umbrella.
All right. Any other questions for the applicant? Public comment? Hearing none. Bring it back to the group.
I'm prepared to make a motion. I
right.
move to approve the special use permit case number LU 2025-0188 based on the findings and subject to the conditions of approval contained in the staff report.
Motion by Commissioner Fizell. Is there a second? Sure. Commissioner DeChristopher, did you second?
No, I did not.
Commissioner Brooks, did you second?
I did not.
Oh.
It was yes.
Oh, Commissioner Peterson second.
Very, very end.
Thank you, thank you. Any further comment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck. It does look better than it did.
Thank you.
Well, that blew our record. That blew our record for getting out of here. Item 6D, LU 2025-0193, discussion and possible action regarding a 5-year review of a previously approved special use permit SP 04-095 for an expanded extraction operation for Cinder Light on property zoned public, regional, and conservation reserve located at 6100 Gonai Road, APN 008-011-06-11-57 and -58. Heather, you're back.
Thank you. Heather Ferris again for the record. In 2004, the Planning Commission approved a new special use permit to allow for the expansion of an extraction operation that was originally approved in 1975. The original SUP from 2004 was subject to 25 conditions of approval, including an annual review. An annual review was conducted in June of 2005, and during that review, the Planning Commission modified the conditions of approval to require ongoing review every 5 years. Municipal code also requires review every 5 years for extraction operations to ensure that the conditions continue to adequately provide for compatibility between these types of operations and the surrounding land uses. The most recent review was completed by the Planning Commission at their July 29th, 2020 meeting. During their 2020 review, the Planning Commission deleted Condition 14, which required Cinder Light to mitigate for impacts to Gonai Road by participating in the reconstruction of the portion of the road from Conestoga to Avery. It was determined their share of this project was $125,712, for which Carson City had received payment. Final payment was received in 2016. In 2020, the Planning Commission and staff still continued to have concerns with regard to the condition of Gonai Road and the impacts from this operation. At that time, the Planning Commission added Condition 26, requiring Cinder Light to provide the city with a cash deposit equal to the cost of a slurry seal and striping for Gonai Road from Conestoga to Kelvin. Following the release of the staff report for this matter, it was brought to my attention that there is an error in the analysis of finding D. The reference to Condition 25 in the finding analysis is incorrect. This condition was met and was deleted with the Planning Commission's 2020 review of the operation. As I discussed in 2020, the Planning Commission added Condition 26 requiring Cinder Light or its successors and interests to provide that cash deposit for the cost of a slurry seal and striping. Since that condition has also been met, staff is recommending striking it from the required conditions of approval this evening. Additionally, staff does not believe the traffic conditions have changed enough to warrant additional mitigations or intersection analysis. So with that background, I'm recommending finding D in the staff report be modified to reflect the fact that the applicant has met these conditions. Additionally, we have received public comment related to storm drainage concerns. As a result, staff is recommending 2 conditions of approval be added to the special use permit that are not in your packet currently to address these concerns. Condition 27 would read, prior to October 1st, 2025, a drainage study must be submitted to the city engineer addressing management of on and off-site flows utilizing the city's drainage manual requirements, comparing the extent of the extraction operation as approved in 2004 to the pre-development condition. Management of on and off-site flows may include, but is not limited to, demonstrating the expansion of the extraction operation will not result in increased runoff for the design storm event, and providing for appropriate on-site retention or detention. For the purposes of this requirement, pre-development condition shall mean the condition of the site as of June 2004. And condition 28 would read, if the drainage study determines the drainage improvements are necessary, all improvements must be permitted and constructed prior to November 1st of 2025. With the addition of these 2 conditions, staff can make the findings and is recommending approval of the 5-year review subject to the conditions. I would note with the addition of these conditions, it modifies finding D and the recommended motion as outlined in my memo. So I've provided the latest recommended modification to finding D and the motion here on this slide. I'm available for questions. Greg Lehman with Cinderlight is here, but first, Stephen has a couple of items he would like to address.
Stephen Pote with Development Engineering for the record. So I wanted to address the drainage in the area as well as the street improvements. So to start with, on the street improvements, Heather mentioned that there was originally a condition for Cinderlight to contribute to reconstruction of Gonai, and that gave from, Conestoga to Avery. They met their part of the deal. They provided payment to the city. However, in analyzing the roadway and the impacts of the business as well as the users, at that time, the city reconstructed from Kelvin to Arrowhead. So it's a different section of street. It's actually shorter. And if my memory served me, it was due to just the amount of funds that we had available for the project. So Cinderlight provided the funds that they were supposed to provide, but the city didn't have enough to do the length. We also moved it further south because there's more traffic using that section of roadway. Subsequent to that, there was a requirement for the slurry seal, and that was on the section that was repaved. So the thought process was, we have a brand new section of street, heavy traffic. The way you maintain new streets is with a slurry seal. However, again, it's been decided that the best way to use those funds that will have the best bang for our buck for the city and the citizens that are being impacted by this road is actually to repave from Arrowhead to College Parkway. So we have received those funds. The decision is not to put those towards a slurry seal, which would extend the life of the section of road that's already been repaved, but rather to put it towards repaving a different section of road. And again, that's from Arrowhead to College. So we'll end up with College all the way up to Kelvin. That does leave the section from Kelvin up to Avery in its current condition. So there might be some residents that don't like hearing that. It kind of is what it is in terms of, we only have so much funding and deciding to how to get the best use of those funds. Those residents that live north of Kelvin, I was looking at the map, it does appear that all of those streets can access Kelvin rather than going down Gonai if they chose to. I don't know that those streets are necessarily in a lot better condition, maybe somewhat better, but So that's where we're at now. That's planned for 2026. Nothing's written in stone, but that's the plan is to do that repaving of Gonai in 2026. On the drainage topic, this is an example of the Planning Commission process working in terms of citizens bringing things to our attention. So in the 2004 mining reclamation plan, it called for a detention basin. Now, whether that existed at one point and has diminished or if it was just missed, not sure what the history is there. There is a depression on site, like not all of the water that flows onto the pit leaves because there's a low, kind of shaped like a bowl as it is. However, there have been a lot of concerns with the drainage and flooding in the area. And it doesn't look like what's there meets what was discussed in that mining and reclamation plan. So the condition that Heather read would require them to have an engineer analysis for today's standards to provide any detention necessary. I also wanted to note, however, that when I did my inspection for this project, I looked at erosion control. It looks like the site is really stabilized. They have their best management practice, like straw wattles and stuff in place to make sure sediment's not leaving the site. So in my professional opinion, I don't believe that Cinderlite is contributing to significant sediment running off the hill, which is an issue in the area. The hillsides over there are very sandy. There's a lot of sediment that comes down in storm events. And I do believe that contributes to some of the flooding that the residents have seen is the sediment coming out of the hills. Additionally, we are going to be reviewing how our operations handle floods in that area, just because in recent history, there have been changes made when there's large events that we anticipate flooding to get water off of Gonai, which in the past, there was a certain amount that would flow down the sides and roadside ditches. Now some of that is diverted into natural channels that may be contributing. So we're going to be looking at our operations. I wouldn't anticipate that we're going to stop moving the water off of Gonai just because of the damage that water causes, but we might be looking at better ways to handle the sediment that's continually coming down that can clog culverts and cause flooding. So long-winded way of saying there's a lot going on. Cinderlite's required to look at their impact and mitigate that. And then the city's also looking at our side of the issue as well.
Is that it?
I believe that's it from staff.
Thank you. I have a real problem with the basic philosophy. And I understand that the city wants to get the most they can get out of the streets that need it. But from a public perception, and this has nothing to do with Cinderlite, so it's really not part of this, but it is kind of part of it. Cinderlite's paid to repave a road. Cinderlite's paid to slurry seal a road. And the public knows that, and it hasn't happened, but the money's gone because we spent it somewhere else. And I just think if we are going to assess people for things like road repair and road slurry because of the operations that they have, then I really feel like that money should be spent in the area where they said it would be spent, instead of just going off into a cloud somewhere and become part of the street pavement program that's so woefully behind anyway. So I have a problem with that. It's not your fault, but I have a problem with how the city does that. And I don't think it does our public relations any good at all. Because the complaints we had were about the condition of the road that Cinderlite paid to fix. And that money's been spent somewhere else. And I just don't think that's fair. Commissioner Brooks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a comment for you and a question for staff. The comment to you is, other companies probably face things like this in Carson City, and if they were aware of this situation, if I were a company attorney, I'd be wanting something in writing that said my assessment was going to go for what it was paid for, because they don't need the PR problem either. Question for staff, going back to the two additional conditions the one related to drainage, they have up until October 1st to get a drainage study to the city, and then they have to have their improvements in place by November 1st. I didn't know if that reflected your assessment that there weren't going to be a lot of improvements necessary, or if that's tight timing for another reason.
Stephen Pote for the record. That timing reflects one, making sure we can get improvements in before the wet season. Also, they have an engineer who regularly comes in and does inspections of the site already. And so that also kind of correlates with that time frame. That was something the applicant requested.
So ground state conditions are pretty well known already, you would say?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see, Commissioner DeChristopher.
Thank you. I just wanted to back you up on your comments, Chair Borders. I feel strongly about that as well, but I don't think there's anything we can do about it at this point in terms of doing it. But it is difficult when something, I mean, if I were a resident in that area, I would feel a little gypped on what's happening. The other question I had, we've talked about erosion. That's something that we deal with ongoing basis, but it also mentions fire. We haven't had one in that area, thankfully, but has anything changed in how we look at that every 5 years, knowing that fire has become a greater concern? Or and I don't even know if you're able to answer that question, but it's one that I have because of the activity that goes on in that area, the close proximity of homes, the close proximity of tinder. So I was just curious if anything from hazard mitigation perspective has changed.
I don't think that I'm prepared to answer that question. I don't know if Hope has
Heather
any
isn't.
insight.
What I can offer, and if we have residents here and the folks from Cinderlight are probably aware of this, our fire department recently did a proactive program with the property owners up there for vegetation removal. It was on the north side of Arrowhead, and it was well publicized to get rid of brush. So is there a fire risk up there? Yes, there is. Is it different than it was in 2004? I'm not sure it's different, to be honest with you. We may just be a little more aware. But our fire department's doing a great job in proactively working with the residents out in that area to help them address brush and things like that to kind of help take more fuel away.
Does the WUI abut Cinderlight's property?
The WUI, I can't say specifically on Cinderlight, most likely though, because that area is in the WUI, and another program the fire department has, which folks in that area can take advantage, I don't want to say take advantage, can avail themselves to, is they make the dumpsters available.
Yeah.
So when you're cleaning, and Commissioner Brooks probably knows because it's your neighborhood. But yeah, so we get the dumpsters are available for free, and they'll drop it off for 3 days, and you can throw your brush in there to encourage everyone to be cleaning up their brush. So yes, it's in the WUI. Yes, there's a wildfire danger. What I can tell you is our fire department's really trying to work with all property owners out in that portion of the city to proactively address fuels for fire. But I can't tell you that anything's changed since 2004.
Commissioner Peterson.
So I'm looking at an overhead map of like a Google Earth view of the area. It looks like there's a lot of natural drainage coming out of the mine. It crosses Avery, follows Gonai, goes along the backyards, the back property of a handful of residents. But if you're gonna improve on the drainage, I mean, is that just cleaning out the existing, what looks like a ravine? You know, are you gonna send it a different direction? I mean, what do we expect from improved drainage out of the pit?
Stephen Pote for the record. We're gonna have to go out there and see what the conditions are and discuss, what the different options are in terms of improving things, if there are any improvements we even can make. I know there is a sedimentation basin right above Avery, or maybe it's above Fermi.
I see
It's
one
in that
below.
area.
I see a pit below. But it looks like it's all natural drainage. I mean, it's a deep ravine, looks like it's been there forever. And I don't think you're gonna divert that in any way, but maybe a sediment cleaning would benefit people, you know? Not really divert it, but help it get where it's supposed to go. An observation.
Commissioner Crone?
A couple of questions. Again, I don't want to necessarily beat a dead horse regarding the road situation, but I'm not happy with that either. I do appreciate the city going ahead and making a commitment to fix things from, if I understand that right, from College up to Arrowhead, correct? They're going to fix that next year, 2026. That's the plan. And then from Arrowhead to Calvin, did I get that right? That's been fixed, if you will. So is Calvin on this map that we're seeing here? Or not? I guess my point is, since you can't pull up that information quickly, I guess my point is telling the residents to just take another street. And I know what you're trying to do, so I'm not trying to be critical here, but I understand it. But it's still, it's like, well, the residents can maybe take another street instead of the one that the city's not gonna fix. And so I'm not sure that's a great answer for the public. Again, I can understand why the citizens up in that area feel a little bit frustrated with the road conditions and stuff. And I realize the city does have limitations on the amount of money. It just, gas tax money doesn't grow on trees. So anyway, yeah, I guess I want to just weigh in and say, yeah, this is not a very good situation for the residents up there or the city. The other question I had, though, is on those conditions. Can you bring those up again, Heather, please? I think Carl Kavlik has a really good point, and one of it is obviously only Cinder Light can be responsible for the flows off their site, but there's a lot of downstream stuff. He indicates that the city did do a larger regional plan, a drainage plan up there. How are these two things going to match between trying to address the flows off of Cinder Light as well as then tying into, or is that part of the study?
Stephen again for the record. So as you indicated, Cinder Light would be responsible for their impact. The city is looking at designing some regional stormwater basins in this area. That's what we have the funding for right now, is the design. So when those will be constructed is kind of a question mark at this point. We need to look at sources of funding, see if we can get those done in the near future.
The other question I have is on 27 and 28 related to the timing. Commissioner Brooks brought this up. I'm going to drill down a little harder on it, I think. When you have the drainage study required to come in October 1st, the city must be submitted to the city engineer. Does the city engineer then approve it? And they can start construction on these things? Are these going to be jointly done kind of in conjunction with each other? I'm just real concerned that, and I think it's admirable to get the improvements in prior to November 1st before we have kind of our rainy season and snow season here. I'm just real concerned about just getting things to the city engineer by October 1st, having them react to it. And if there's something wrong, how does that work in relationship to the improvements that are supposed to be done? I just think, I'm real concerned about setting this up. I'm real concerned about setting up Cinder Light for failure with this timeline. And so I don't know if Cinder Light can address it, that they can do these things within the time frame. And I know they got big kind of equipment up there that can move a lot of dirt quickly. So I mean, it's possible, especially if they're trying to do this in-house. But I guess I'm real concerned about the timeline, and maybe the applicant can address it. But Stephen, do you think that's too tight?
I think that question is probably best answered by Cinderlight.
So let's ask them. We're ready for you. Come on up.
Greg Lehman from Cinderlight. First off, I got to say it's very odd not to be standing at a podium and you guys way above me, and this is much different. So,
Were there originally 26 conditions of approval on the renewal of this SUP? Now there's 28.
right.
I'd like to get your input on these last two.
Okay. Yeah, there's a few things I'd like to address just listening to it. So, this came up about, there was somebody had mentioned, I think they got a letter regarding, stormwater. And so then obviously that's like a hot button. Everybody jumps off, oh, what's Cinderlight doing? Are we creating this? And really the impact that we've had there has actually minimized stormwater from our operation. And so when they were trying to address, well, we want to make sure that, we're appeasing everybody and that this is in there, would you agree to this? And I said, sure. So I talked to my engineer, and we fly the pit once a year, every year at the beginning of September. We do it in conjunction with our portion with BLM, because obviously part of this is BLM in the city, and it's all tied together. And so he said it'd be no problem. He has everything together, and he said, really, you have a depression in that pit in the back, and you guys hold a lot of water, and you're actually helping the situation. So he said, for me to do this won't take much time at all, and I can have it together for the city, and then we would appease if somebody thought that. But really, what the residents were concerned about is obviously there's a lot of drainage from the canyon that's from all over that's not us. And so then, the first place people are going to look is, well, what operation is up there? Oh, that must be adding to it. And in the complete opposite, we're actually helping it. On top of that, we've worked with, all the way back to the days of Rob Fellows. I helped Rob build berms up there because he was having problems through the Gonai Canyon. We've worked with the city road department during the flooding to help anywhere that they've had things up there, because we have equipment there as well. And sometimes these flash floods come in so fast that we can sometimes help react quicker than they can. And, we're a large property owner up there. So, out of goodwill, we just make sure that we take care of it. Furthermore, we have an NDEP permit. I have a stormwater permit. Obviously, we're regulated by them as well. They come up and inspect our facility. So we make sure that, hey, we don't want to be adding to it. So when you ask, are you okay with these conditions? It's almost like, in some ways, I think to myself, well, this is even more proof that we're helping the situation and not harming it. So being that I have it flown, I have an engineer that does it. We do it for the BLM already anyway. I don't have a problem with this if this is the conditions you guys want to put on us.
Well, the flip side of that is there's another piece of paper that says you're not the big bully on the hill.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm taking from your comments that you probably will accept all 28 of these conditions.
Correct.
Okay.
And then the only other thing is and I'm just bringing this up, you talked about the street thing, and I just kind of want to re-bring that back is, the 120, I just want to put it in context. The $125,000 that we first paid at that time was really hard. I think it came in like 2004, 2005, that was going to be one of our conditions, right? And kind of at that time when we asked for the expansion back in 2004, that condition came on, and it was like, well, man, nobody else in town does this. So we were kind of like the first kid on the block to have to do this condition. There was no None of the concrete plants, none of the prefab plants, none of the steel manufacturers, none of the building companies, nobody had to pay for roads. And we were really the first one because of this special use permit. So what I'm saying that is like, this isn't a woe is me thing, is I'm just saying that if we put it in context though, we had 10 years to come up with that money. And now you throw a recession right into the middle of it. And I also so we did come up with it and we did do it. But nowadays it sounds like, oh, well, geez, $125,000, what's that going to get you? Well, back then it was a big chunk of money. Now that might not sound like, oh, it was a lot today, but I just wanted to kind of put it in context of what it was like to have that condition back then put upon us and what we had to do to make sure it happened. So,
Well,
to your point.
I think we understand that. I just,
Yeah.
my complaint is not with Cinderlight at all. I mean, you all stood up and paid your money, as tough as it might have been.
Right, exactly.
My concern was that the city then took that money and did something else with it. And then, so the people that drive down that road say, well, Cinderlight paid for it, but maybe they didn't pay for it. And so it becomes a nightmare for, a PR nightmare for you and us and everybody else. And I don't think that's fair to you.
Right.
And I don't think it's fair to the people that live up there.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I do want to point out, as far as like a PR nightmare, we really try to minimize, we've lived in town our whole lives. We went to school here. My dad and I had homes in the area. We were part of the homeowners association up there, and we still help them hold their annual meeting. And I still talk to the people on the board, and we invite anybody who ever wants to come out, anybody who has questions. I still attend the yearly meeting so that if there's anything that wants to be addressed, we can address it. So I don't want to make it sound like we avoided anybody that has questions for us either. We help with the Gonai Canyon cleanup up there with them and everything else. So we try to be a good citizen in the area where if people have comments or concerns that we're addressing them and that we're being a good neighbor.
Commissioner Peterson?
Well, Greg, I totally agree, because I know that whole area up there. American Building, they had trucks rolling out of there with steel prefab buildings, with trucks that weighed probably as much as yours. Yep. And I know they didn't put any money into Conestoga, and I'm thinking that, Greg, in good faith, your company threw that money to make the road decent, at least from Kelvin to Avery, which is a pretty short distance. Now we're talking from Kelvin all the way down to College Parkway, going the opposite direction. And it looks bad on these guys with those neighbors, thinking that, well, they're sloughing. Cinderlight's not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Well, they don't know. They didn't sit on this meeting. They didn't find out all the nuts and bolts about where that money went. And, Chairman Borders, I'm with you. I'm just glad I didn't say that the city did something else with that money. Glad it was you.
Anything else for the applicant? Public comment? Any public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be glad to come up and answer any other
Okay.
questions.
Thank you.
I'm Carol Grenier, and I'm a resident on Avery Road. And by the way, Kelvin is on your map. When you see that little triangle there, that's the open area, and Kelvin is on the south end of that. So you can see that triangle that's open, where her pointer is. Kelvin is on the south end of that. So my comments are just, I appreciate what Chairman Borders said. For the residents that are up there, like you, I don't blame Cinderlight for the condition of the road when they contributed to that. I'm a retired civil engineer. My partner worked for the Department of Transportation. My neighbor is also a retired civil engineer. And I think some of our comments would be more focused to the city because we have a lot of comments about the drainage whenever there's a flood up there because the design needs some work. So if the city is looking at doing anything with the drainage there, I think some of us would like to have some input into that, because, you know, to be helpful, and, you know, I'm talking about like my partner and my neighbor, very practical people, and they have a lot of good ideas. You're not, you know, we're not just trying to be critical. You know, we really have some ideas about, there's places where the water drains down and then it makes like a 90-degree corner. It's like, you know, and it's not, you know, it's not armored. So you're just asking for trouble with that. And, you know, we see places on Gonai before it gets to Kelvin, when there is a, you know, flow that comes down that drain, it flows into the street. And, you know, the drainage is, it's a difficult problem because I've looked at it. There's a low spot there, and it's really hard to figure out how to get that to drain, you know, right where Maxwell goes in, I think. So, yeah, it's a problem. And the road is, you know, because of the, I think, the trucks, it did need work. It is certainly not designed to carry those heavy trucks. You know, they're, where the wheels go from the trucks, especially downhill, the loaded ones, there's actually dips in the wheel tracks, and it's completely alligatored, and there's a house just north of, or on the north side of Maxwell and Gonai, where, you know, chunks of asphalt have come out and there's just dirt underneath. There's no base there. You know, the city did a great job from Kelvin down to Arrowhead. That road, after they redid it, you know, there's no dipping where the wheels go.
It's been 3 minutes. Your
What's
time
that?
is up,
Oh, okay, thank you.
but thank you. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, just briefly,
Yes.
unless there's public comment. First, I want to say something positive about Cinder Light, because I don't want you to take what I'm about to say as anything negative. I've worked with Bob a lot. Mr. Lehman, I haven't worked so much with you, but you've always been very easy to work with. That said, the staff would never put anything forward to appease people. And so I do have to, I have to state that for anyone who may be watching on TV or anybody in the audience, we would not put a local business through that. We would recommend a condition of approval because based on our expertise, we believe it's the right thing to do. We often are asked to do things by members of the community that we don't agree with. And we will stand up for what's right and what we professionally think. So I don't want anyone to believe we'd ever ask a business to have some type of expense to appease people if we didn't technically stand behind it. Thank you.
Okay. Somebody want to try this?
I'll move to approve LU 2025-0193, the 5-year review of SUP 04095, based on the findings included in the staff report as amended with the staff's June 20th, 2025 memorandum, and subject to the amended conditions of approval, adding condition number 27 and 28 as presented in the staff's June 2025 presentation.
I second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Staff report.
Thank you. We'll move on. Let's see, what order am I doing this? My report to the commission. First, on the roadway improvements, you requested a list of the roadway improvements that were being considered. What we've provided to you, and Chris Martinovich alluded to it, are the roadway projects approved by RTC at their meeting of June 11th, 2025. So we have Empire Ranch Road between US 50 and Morgan Mill. Fairview between US 50 and 5th, Bud-Eye Way, an airport road between Fairview and 5th Street, Hills Bells, Marsh Road, and I'm reading this even though I know you can read it, but for the benefit of the public. Hills Bells, Marsh Road between 5th Street and 5th Street, Edmonds Drive between Fairview and Snyder, and Racetrack Road between Bigelow and Center Drive. So that is the recommendation for FY '26. Of course, Mackenzie, who's watching, so we like to give her a shout out because I know she watches the meetings. I'm going to present her report to you. So this is our report as of June 23rd, 2025. We had just shy of $10 million worth of valuation in June, so we still have a ways to go, so we may hit the 10 million. Total valuation of permits in 2025 is $610,857. We've had 20 housing starts in the month of June as of June 23rd. 20 of those were 17 single family, 3 were multifamily or manufactured. We've had a total of 322 housing starts this calendar year, and that's actually through June 23rd. We have to fix that date. Planning Commission, you know what you did tonight. Code enforcement, we had 101 cases open in June as of June 23rd. 73 cases were closed. We had 6 weed cases that we are pursuing proactively. So we have somebody who's helping us out this summer, and he's proactively going through primarily redevelopment area, historic district, but then when he gets, he'll go beyond that and proactively looking at weeds. We are hoping to get to proactive enforcement on signs, and we are doing proactive enforcement on the weekends for street vendors who don't have business licenses. We issued 53 parking tickets in June, and we had 2 RVs towed. There were 42 new business licenses issued as of June 23rd in the month of June. For upcoming events, the Historic Resource Commission, which Heather staffs, will meet on July 2nd. The administrative permit review, that's a hearing that Heather staffs. They'll be having a hearing on July 30th, and then you'll meet on July 30th. You are meeting early because you have a lot of stuff on your agenda, and I'll go through what that is for you. In terms of special events, because our business license division handles special events, RSVP will be hosting the 4th of July fireworks on the 4th of July at Eagle Valley Golf Course. The Downtown Revival Car Show will be in downtown Carson City on July 12th. And on July 25th, the Feisty Goat Pub is having wine and beer sampling at Mills Park. And that's that. In terms of your upcoming items, you do have a big agenda for July. So you'll have a special use permit for a construction yard on Arrowhead Drive, a special use permit for review of a storage container on Russell Way, a special use permit for a childcare facility on Hot Springs Road, a special use permit for the Montessori school they're looking to locate at the MAC, 1870 Russell Way. So they won't take over the MAC, they'll just have some of the grades basically working out from the MAC, and that will be explained at that meeting. Let's see, there's an amendment to a special use permit to amend, this is Highway 50. I'm not sure which that one is, do you know? Oh, it's Skyline and Hillside, okay. That's why it said grading, so I didn't know. Okay, so that's Highway 50 West, so it's going towards Tahoe. There's a special use permit on East 6th Street for a new office and parking garage. That's the legislature is looking to build a new office building with a parking garage. So we've been meeting with our partners at the state. They are doing some construction, and they're in our expanded downtown, although they're called public. So we are having them go with what I like to call urban light, and where they're being great to work with. So you'll see the legislative building proposal in July.
It's not 8 stories, is it?
We wouldn't do that. Okay. And then we have a special use permit for 4 hangars and a storage building over at the airport. So that is future items, and now we're on commission reports and comments.
Title 18.
What about it? Yes, that was a noun.
No, that was a question mark.
Right now, what we're doing is Mackenzie has swapped out the photographs in the master plan update for me. I went out and took new photographs for anything that was not Carson City. She is putting the updated master plan on the website. GIS, I'm hoping, will have the maps uploaded into the city's GIS system by July 1. Those have been updated because you'll remember the board made changes. And then in August, I have to have a listening session, and you all are invited to join me at the library. And I'll probably do a couple. I'll probably do one on a weekday after 5 and a Saturday at the library. I need to book that. And then in August, you have the master plan map again for anyone who wants to look at mapping changes. So that's my way of saying I'd rather not do Title 18 till I have the master plan kind of in the rear view mirror.
Oh, you misunderstood.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I would just like to have one to read and carry around
Oh,
with me.
okay. So Lena Rezick, our assistant planner, has been going through that for just doing minor editing on that, like just where there's an extra space and stuff. So we should be able to get that to you, I would say, in July, if not earlier,
Okay,
so that you can carry it around and be me.
all right.
Would you like a binder, or do you want the slinky?
I like the slinky.
Okay, we'll get you the slinky. We'll get everybody the slinky for Title 18.
the
I
other-
don't know, it was a noun I didn't understand.
I'm sorry. The other thing was, we have a new city manager. Are we ever going to have him come and meet with us?
He hasn't started yet. He starts on July 1st, and I will, once he's on the job, I will invite him. I will
Okay.
not be at your July meeting, so
Well,
maybe that's a
maybe
good time
August.
for him to come. You guys can talk about me. But, yeah, I'm missing your July meeting, but once he's on board, I'll figure out his calendar and see if he'd like to
Okay.
come and meet everybody.
Commissioner Crone, do you have something you wanted to say?
I just had a question on the map, but your 2 engineers walked out of the room. So I'll pass on that. You're welcome.
Hope this FY 26 plan with all the streets are these streets funded in FY 26, or is that a beginning to start going out for bids to figure out when you're going to do it?
My understanding is that's what RTC has voted to be funded, so now they'll have to go out to bid, and if bids come in high, they may not be able to do everything.
Anything else?
No, we've just been busy. I mean, we're doing a fee study. We are, you can see you're starting your July calendar early. I'm trying to get the master plan behind us, but we're not quite there. And of course, then have to update Title 18 again while we're not sitting around.
Thank you. Have fun in Japan. Germany, okay, Germany. Public comment? God, I miss Denny.
Yeah. Where's Danny? That's it, that's it.
Say what?
Are you ready for a motion to adjourn?
Yes, I am.
All right, I move that we adjourn this meeting.
There's a second?
Yes.
Meeting's adjourned.